The question we're trying to answer in this video is how many games are played in the first round of Soccer's World Cup. So for the last 5 World Cups, we have 32 teams. And in the first round, those teams are divided into 8 groups. So in the first round, you have 8 groups, and each group has 4 teams. And in a single group, each team plays the other 3 teams once. So the total number of games in the first round is equal to 8 times the number of games per group. So what we need to find is how many games are played in a given group. So let's draw here a simple scoreboard. So we have 4 teams. So we're going to draw a square, 4 columns, and we have 4 rows. And let's call the number of teams n. So we have here n equals 4. And we're going to name our teams A, B, C, and D. Same here, A, B, C, and D. So in this scoreboard, we have n columns, and we have n rows. So the total number of squares is equal to n times n, which equals to n squared. Now, if you look closely here, Team A cannot play against itself, so we have to get rid of this square, and the same for the other team. So all of the squares along the diagonal will have to be removed. And how many squares do we end up removing? Well, the number of squares in the diagonal is equal to the number of teams, so it's equals to 4 or equals n. So the total number of unshaded squares equals to n squared, and we're going to subtract n, which is the number of shaded squares. So that equals to n times n minus 1. Now, if you look closely here, this square says that A is going to play against B, but this square says the same. A is going to play against B. But we said here that every team plays every other team just once. So we just have to count one of these 2 squares. And the same here. This square says that C is going to play against A. This square says C is going to play against A, so we have to count that once. So to count the total number of games in a given group, we can do that just by counting the number of squares below the diagonal, or you could count the number of squares above the diagonal. And the answer is, so the number of games in a group equals, so we said the total number of unshaded squares is n times n minus 1, so that gives us all of these squares below the diagonal and the number of squares above the diagonal. We just need to divide that by 2. So that equals n times n minus 1 divided by 2. And because n equals 4, that equals 4 times 3 times 2 divided by 2, so that equals 6. So we have a total number of 6 games per group. So the answer to our question here, what's the total number of games in the first round? Well, that equals to 8 times number of games per group is equal to 6. So the answer is 48.